Hell yeah. Uh, Hello to the BFOD squad. Welcome back to Barrel Full of Daryl podcast. That's me, Daryl. And here I talk about music, movies, sprinkle in some mirth, as well as shovel some other funky ass shit your way. Yeah, so I really hope that you guys are listening to and enjoying this podcast. Okay. Now, last weekend, Megan, Kinsey, and Logan were visiting me, and we took a day trip to Estes Park in the Colorado Rocky Mountains. It was a heap of fun. They actually had an art show going on. It was pretty cool. If you've never been to Estes Park, if you're ever in Colorado near the Rocky Mountains, make a special trip. It's a neat little place. While we were there, we videoed a YouTube short video, and it's posted on YouTube, and it's titled Barrel Full of Daryl Short Estes Park, ESTES. Take a peek. I think you'll like it. By the way, that day we had lunch at an Irish pub, and Kenzie decided to get the appetizer of Rocky Mountain oysters. Woo. I don't know if you've had them or not, but I do not recommend them. We got a video of it, and it will be posted soon on my upcoming new podcast, Daryl Out of the Barrel, which will be video based. So stay tuned for that. I'll keep you posted. Mystery music lyric. When I get drunk, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who gets drunk next to you. Now, you may have noticed during episode 12, that was the question, and Megan, bless her heart, she blurted out the answer, 500 miles by the Proclaimers. Absolutely correct, as heard in the movie Shrek. Mystery movie quote for you. Leave the gun, take the cannoli. Leave the gun, take the cannoli. Okay, let's talk about music. Music. Last episode 12, it was recorded soon after Logan's birthday, my grandson. And Megan and Kinsey came to visit and to join in on the festivities. And we grabbed the opportunity to do a panel discussion. And we had a good time doing it. Now, I have previously shared with you guys that during the inception of this podcast, Kinsey and I were originally to be co-hosts. But that didn't work out because Kinsey, aka the Walking Encyclopedia, is a very busy guy. I can attest to that. So he bowed out. But he is still my producer, and he provides chiding and guiding, and I really appreciate it. Now, while he was here, somehow the song Wicked Game by Chris Isaak came up in the convo. I mentioned to Kinsey that Jack Black did a cover of it, which we watched, and then I pulled up my music library and played other songs by Chris Isaak. Kinsey was surprised by how many great songs he has, and he made a playlist for later listening. But I think this is true for most people. knowing an artist, his most famous song, but not much more. Well, Chris Isaak, I believe he's that way, unless you're a true fan of Chris Isaak. So who the fuck is Chris Isaak? He was born in 1956 in Stockton, California. He's an American singer, songwriter, guitarist, and actor. Now, he's been active since 1978, and he's released 13 studio albums. His music, it crosses over multiple genres, including rockabilly, rock and roll, and soft rock. Now, I'll tell you that the majority of his songs are soft rock. They're ballads about lost love and unrequited love. And they're all really damn good. Now, he's also had cameos in numerous films, and he had a television show called The Chris Isaak Show, and later another one called Chris Isaak Hour. Now, he has an awesome voice with a very wide vocal range in which he almost always uses falsetto for some of his notes. Also, he's a very attractive man. I don't mind saying that myself. He's a good-looking man. Now, let me say here that Chris is good friends with the movie director David Lynch. Had a long friendship. And he's one of my favorite directors. Got some awesome movies out there, and some of them feature Chris Isaak songs. In the movie Wild at Heart that Lynch directed, there's an instrumental version of the song Wicked Game by Chris Isaak. And it's on the soundtrack as well. Also, Lynch developed a music video for this song, which included clips from the movie, which was Chris Isaak and his band, dressed in suits, playing on a stage, and intermittent scenes from the movie, Wild at Heart. Now, this song, Wicked Game, which you have likely heard, was released in 1989 from the album Heart-Shaped World, but it didn't get a lot of airplay. It went unnoticed. However, a guy named Lee Chestnut, a music director at an Atlanta radio station, was a big fan of David Lynch. And he heard the instrumental version in the movie, Wild at Heart, and he started playing at the radio station the vocal version of Wicked Game. And it became the station's most requested song. So he spread the news to other stations. Yeah, and then it became a hit. And it charted at number 6 in the USA and number 10 in the UK. Now, a second music video directed by Herb Ritz was filmed in black and white, and it featured Chris Isaak and supermodel Helena Christensen on a beach in Hawaii. Now, this video won 3 VHS Video Music Awards, including Best Male Video. So now Chris Isaak, he's a star. Now, according to my research, Wicked Game has been covered by 93 artists. Wow. But as I stated earlier, there's much more to his music. So many of his songs have been used in movies, television, commercials, etc. Now, here's a list of my favorite songs, other than Wicked Game, and I'll be adding them to the playlist. Somebody's Crying, Baby Did a Bad, Bad Thing, Let Me Down Easy, and Only the Lonely, which was a hit. It was written by and recorded by Roy Orbison. Kenzie and I agree that Chris Isaak's version sounds better. So I'd like for you to tiptoe on over to the playlist and enjoy these songs by Chris Isaak. Now, here's a side note. Chris Isaak was in an episode of Friends, and he and Phoebe were at the coffee shop doing a duet of her song Smelly Cat. Now, near the end of the song, he started using his falsetto, and Phoebe gave him an odd look. And he looked at her and he said, "What?" And she said, "I think you should sing a more masculine note." Yeah. And now a word from our sponsor. I'll be right back. Well, hi y'all. This is Robbie Ray Simpleton again, also known as Dr. Frankenstein here in Scratch Ankle. Now, I have an update for you on my creation of a squabbit. Now, last week, I sneaked behind Doc McDonald as he was hunting for squirrel and rabbit. I followed him back to his house and I stole one of each. Freshly dead squirrel and a freshly dead rabbit. So I came back home and I dissected them. I put rabbit ears, rabbit feet, and a rabbit tail on the squirrel. Now all I have to do is apply the proper voltage to bring the squabbit to life. So here we go. And we're back. Time for a movie. Movie. I will discuss with you today a pretty cool film. Well, it's a mindfuck film, which means it's awesome. Directed by David Lynch, and the name of the film is Blue Velvet. Now, it has a lot of explicit content, such as violence, S&M, and a little bit of rape, and it was released in 1977, but it received mixed reviews because of the explicit content. However, the director David Lynch earned his second Academy Award nomination for Best Director for this film. And over the years, it has achieved cult status, and it is now widely regarded as a masterpiece. So it stars Kyle MacLachlan, who is a favorite of David Lynch. He appears in a lot of David's stuff, such as the movie Dune, which was kind of a flop in the theaters. He was in the television show Twin Peaks. So Kyle MacLachlan and David Lynch worked together quite a bit. Now, the movie also stars Isabella Rossellini, a supermodel. It stars Laura Dern, Bruce Dern's daughter, and she was in this movie at the age of 18. It stars Dean Stockwell and Dennis Hopper. Oh boy, does it star Dennis Hopper. He is a madman in this role. We'll get into more of that later. So Blue Velvet is a theme in this film. Isabella plays a lounge singer who sings the song Blue Velvet. And that's a song originally released in 1951 and covered many times, most notably by Bobby Vinton in 1963. It went to number 1. Also, Dennis Hopper carries around a piece of blue velvet, which he uses to gag people, sometimes even himself. So the movie, it's a neo-noir mystery thriller, and David Lynch's style really shows through. It definitely reminds me of his more recent film, Mulholland Drive, and along with his TV show, Twin Peaks. Now, both the film and the TV show are dark and contain a lot of symbolism. And really, you have no idea, up to halfway in the movie, you really have no idea what the fuck is going on. Now, Blue Velvet has been labeled as dreamlike, ultra weird, surreal, and oddball. Now, I agree with all that. Probably one of the reasons I like it so much. But it also tells a very good story. So here's the story, and yes, there will be spoilers. The setting is a fictional small town in North Carolina called Lumberton. You know, lumberjacks and shit. Now, Kyle MacLachlan plays Jeffrey, a college student who returns home after his father suffers a near fatal heart attack. Now, Jeffrey visits his father in the hospital, and while walking home through a vacant lot, he finds a severed human ear. Yeah. So Jeffrey, he picks up the ear, drops in a brown paper bag, and he takes it to police detective John Williams. And John Williams tells him, let's keep this quiet until I can do some investigating, figure out what's going on. Now, this detective has a daughter named Sandy, played by Laura Dern, and Jeffrey and Sandy know each other from high school. And Sandy tells him she thinks the ear is somehow related to the lounge singer Dorothy Valens, played by Isabella Rossellini. So Jeffrey decides to play detective, and with some help from Sandy, try to find out what's going on. So he disguises himself as a pest exterminator. He knocks on Dorothy's door, and he gains entrance to her apartment. Now, while he is spraying for bugs, there is a knock on the door. Dorothy answers, and it's a man in a yellow jacket, who becomes known as the Yellow Man. Now, Jeffrey takes this opportunity to steal a spare key to Dorothy's apartment while she's distracted, and then he casually leaves. Well, that night, Jeffrey and Sandy go to Dorothy's nightclub act where she's singing Blue Velvet. They duck out early so that Jeffrey can break into her apartment, looking for clues. While in the apartment, Jeffrey finds a photograph of a man and a boy. Dorothy arrives, and Jeffrey, he's surprised. He ducks into the nearby closet that has slatted doors so he can see through it. So Dorothy undresses and then finds Jeffrey in the closet. And she holds him at knife point and makes him undress. Then she comes onto him and forces him onto a sofa where they start to make out. But then there is a knock on the door. Jeffrey grabs his clothes and again goes and hides in the closet. Now, Dorothy answers the door and Frank walks in. Frank is played by Dennis Hopper, and he is a psychopathic drug dealer. Holy shit, he is very psychopathic. I mean, watching the movie, I'm even afraid of him. So he enters the room and starts inhaling gas from a canister through a medical mask, which makes him maniacal. Now, the type of gas was not revealed in the movie, but it's likely amyl nitrate. He then rapes and beats Dorothy, and as he leaves, he tells her she better stay alive. Now, Jeffrey sees and hears all this, and he deduces that Frank has kidnapped the husband and the son in order to keep Dorothy as a sex slave. And he had cut off the husband's ear to intimidate her into submission. Now, later on, Jeffrey continues to see his friend from high school, Sandy, but he also starts a sadomasochistic, S&M relationship with Dorothy. One day, Frank catches Jeffrey leaving Dorothy's apartment, and he's not very happy about it, to say the least. So he and his gang kidnap Jeffrey and force him and Dorothy to go on a joyride. It's nighttime. They arrive at a sawmill where Frank continues to sexually assault Dorothy. Now, in the back seat, Jeffrey yells at him to stop and punches Frank in the face. Holy shit. So they drag Jeffrey out of the car and they beat him senseless. He wakes up in the road at the sawmill the next morning, walks back to town, and goes to the police station. While he's in there looking for Detective Williams, Jeffrey sees the yellow man, who turns out to be a detective as well. And he has been murdering Frank's competition and stealing drugs from the evidence room to give to Frank. So Jeffrey sneaks out and he goes to Detective Williams' home and tells him what's going on, what he's found out. Detective Williams says, okay, let's keep this hush hush, especially since, this other detective is involved in it. So later on, Jeffrey and Sandy go to a party. And at this party, they declare their love for each other. And after leaving the party, their car is being followed at high speed, and they assume it's Frank. But it's not. It's Sandy's ex-boyfriend who is chasing them down. So Jeffrey, he's right in front of his house now, so he stops the car. And the ex-boyfriend, along with his buddies, stop in front of his car, and they pull Jeffrey out of the car in order to beat his ass. Okay, spoiler alerts. Spoiler alert. Do what you gotta do. At that moment, when they're about to beat Jeffrey's ass, Dorothy appears on the porch, naked, shivering, and crying. Jeffrey goes to her and comforts her, while she whispers that they are secret lovers. Sandy is watching this, and she basically can't believe what she's seeing and hearing, and she's overwhelmed, and she slaps Jeffrey. But they call an ambulance that takes Dorothy to the hospital. Now, Jeffrey calms Sandy down and tells her to tell her father, Detective Williams, tell him everything. And he leads the police on a raid to find and arrest Frank. The cops go to Frank's place and a shootout starts. Cops are dying, criminals are dying, but Frank's not there. Now, meanwhile, Jeffrey has returned to Dorothy's apartment where he finds the yellow man and Dorothy's husband dead. And yes, he is missing an ear. And a little bit later, Frank also enters the apartment searching for Jeffrey. Jeffrey is again hiding in the closet. But this time, he has the yellow man's gun and he shoots Frank through the forehead. So Sandy and her father soon enter the apartment, and the detective tells Jeffrey that it's all over now. So Sandy and Jeffrey make up and they live happily ever after. Now, this film has some intense scenes. It may not be suitable for some folks, but I imagine that if you, my listeners, can put up with my shit, then you can handle this movie. Yeah. It's currently streaming for free on Pluto TV, but you have to abide the commercials. Yeah. Okay. Word of the day. No, word of the week. Word of the week. Again, thanks to Dustin for this one. Et merda. Kind of like et cetera, but it's et merda. ETM period. It's a slang abbreviation for the Latin et merda, which means and shit. It's basically a comical replacement for etc. As in, Daryl discusses music, movies, et merda, and shit. Now, some people, I've noticed that some people confuse the abbreviations IE and EG. Now, IE comes from the Latin phrase id est, meaning that is or that is to say. In other words, it means in other words. As in, the ointment only needs to be applied for a short period of time, i.e., 3 to 5 days. Now, EG comes from the Latin phrase exempli gratia, meaning for example, and it's used to introduce one or more examples. As in, the article discusses the nutritional benefits of root vegetables, e.g., potatoes, carrots, and beets. Okay. Apologies for the short English lesson. Joke of the week. Bobby went with his friends to play a round of golf at the local club, but they were constantly being held up by the group in front of them. So Bobby went and complained to the course marshal. But the marshal told him that those guys are firefighters who were all blinded during a rescue mission, and the club is giving them a free round of golf. So Bobby asked the marshal, why can't they play at night? Question of the week. Last week's question was, what is the length of a day on the planet Venus? Well, a Venusian day is 243 Earth days, which is longer than a Venusian year at 225 Earth days. So a day on Venus lasts longer than a year on Venus. Now, unlike most planets, Venus has retrograde rotation, meaning it rotates clockwise around its own axis and orbits counterclockwise to the sun. Yeah, it's a fucked up planet. Here are a few other tidbits. The atmosphere on Venus is 97% carbon dioxide and 3% nitrogen, both existing as supercritical fluids. Now, this atmosphere creates a greenhouse effect with surface temperatures of 735 Kelvin, 462 Celsius, and 864 Fahrenheit. That's hot. Hot as hell. Now, also, the pressure at its surface is 93 times that of Earth's. 93 times the pressure that we experience here on Earth. Also, it has a thick cloud layer of sulfuric acid around the entire planet. Yeah, a great spot for a vacation. New question of the week. How many years will it be before the Earth is destroyed by the sun when it becomes a red giant? How many years will it be before the Earth is destroyed by the sun when it becomes a red giant? Okay, thought of the week. This is from Confucius. It does not matter how slowly you go as long as you do not stop. Yeah, you can tell from that Confucius never worked for a boss. Okay, and don't forget about the playlist I've got swinging around out there. Season 2 is already getting a little lengthy. I hope you guys are enjoying the music, listening to it, and liking it. Now, if you desire, you can contact me by clicking on the send me a text button in the episode or directly at bfodpodcast@gmail.com. Love to hear from you. By the way, don't forget that the podcast has, the episodes, they have a little button for you to go click on to support this show. Now, this is a feature that allows you to send me a couple of dollars every month, a couple of euros every month, whatever your currency. And there are various amounts you can pick from. So, if you're up to it, do it. If you'd rather not, then that's fine too. Well, that wraps up this episode. Again, a bit long. I think they've been running longer lately. Hope you don't mind. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you were educated. And next time we'll talk about the mystery movie quote and the question of the week. So have a great week. I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.